After that, okay, we are live. Dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Krishna Prabhupada, and all glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace GARUDA Prabhu, and all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees. Dear devotees, we are very much blessed and honored to have the association of our beloved uncle and possibly great uncle, His Grace GARUDA Prabhu, to be with us today. There isn't many devotees here at the moment. Of course, I know devotees will be joining shortly, but we got to move on. So after the class, after the Krishna Katha, we will try to formally introduce our revered speaker to you all. Most people that may be watching this on live, pretty much sure that they already know Prabhuji, but to those of us in assembly here that do not know him, that very much will try to do that after the Krishna Katha. Prabhuji, we're very much honored to have your association. I believe this is your first time speaking on Hare Krishna Africa platform.
Yes, it is, indeed.
Okay, thank you. So what we do is just like a temple room setting. I'm sure you saw Srila Prabhupada chanted the Jai Radha Madhava. Some devotees also like to chant the Jai Radha Madhava even after Srila Prabhupada has chanted. That is also allowed if you choose to, or sorry, if you choose to. Others just go by what Srila Prabhupada has chanted, and then we'll put the verse on the screen. You chant the slokas. Devotees might not respond because it creates echo, which is not really nice. You chant. If you do the translation perfect, and then you share your comments or realization on the subject matter, and devotees may also ask questions. And if you allow devotees may also share the realization on the subject matter. And then we'll bring the class to a close. So again, thank you so much. And you're welcome to your own home, Hare Krishna Africa. So with that being said, if you do not want to chant the Jai Radha Madhava, then we may put the verse on the screen.
Yeah, let's go right into the verse.
Okay.
And then I think that'll be fine. That shall suffice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So here we have Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse 45. So I'll just chant the Sanskrit briefly. Nasya karmani janmado parasyanu vidyate. Let's see, try that again. Parasyanu vidyate kartritva pratishedartam mayayaropitam hitat. And the synonyms: na, never; asya, of the creation; karmani, in the matter of; janma adau, creation and destruction; parasya, of the supreme; anuvidiyate, it is so described; kartritva, engineering; pratishedha artham, counteract; mayaya, by the external energy; aropitam, is manifested; he, for Tat, the Creator. Translation: there is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Report by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic direction for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world is this: Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yet prayantya abhisam vishanti. That is, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman, and after annihilation, everything is conserved in Brahman. Gross materialists without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan conclude material nature is to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestation. And the modern scientist also shares this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause of all the manifestations of the material world. This view is refuted by all Vedic literature. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on the Vedanta philosophy, says, Janmadyasya yato navaya itarascha charishu abhigya swarat, etc. Inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism Janmadyasya by saying Abhigya and Swarat, that is, the Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction, but material nature is set into motion for creation by the supreme conscious being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 10. Maya dyakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam he tunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord. Adyakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act as a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. Although it appears to the layman that the mother gives birth to the child, the experienced man knows that the father gives birth to the child. The material nature, therefore, produces the moving and standing manifestations of the material world after being contacted by the Supreme Father, and not independently. Considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples on the neck of a Ganga by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this logic of Ajagala Stana Nyaya as follows, as explained by His Divine Grace Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. Quote, the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhana, and as the efficient cause is known as Maya. But since it is inert matter, it is not remote. It is not the remote cause of creation. Kaviraj Goswami states as follows: Ataiva Krishna Mula Jagat Karuna, Prakriti Karana, Yaiche Aja Galastana. Because Karananar Vashayi Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, the inert matter is neither efficient nor the material cause of the cosmic manifestation. Sri Kapiladev has said, Yatol Mukad, Vispulingad, Dhumad Vapi, Swasambhavat, Apyat Matrena Bimatat, Yatagni Pritag Ulmukat. It's Bhagavatam 3:28-40. The original fire, its flame, its sparks, and its smoke are all one, for the fire is still fire, yet is different from the flame. Flame is different from the sparks, and sparks are different from the smoke. In every one of them, namely in the flames, in the sparks, and in the smoke, the integrity of fire is present, yet all of them are differently situated with different positions. The cosmic manifestation is compared to the smoke, because when smoke passes over the sky, so many forms appear, resembling many known and unknown manifestations. The sparks are compared to living entities, and the flames are compared to material nature, pradhana. One must know that each and every one of them is effective simply because of being empowered by the quality of the original fire. Therefore, all of them, namely the material nature, the cosmic manifestation, and the living entities, are but different energies of the Lord, fire. Therefore, those who accept the material nature as the cosmic manifestation's original cause, prakriti, the cause of creation according to Sankhya philosophy, are not correct in their conclusion. Material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. Therefore, setting aside the Supreme Lord as the cause of all causes is the logic of Ajagalastana Nyaya, or trying to milk the nipples on the neck of a goat. The nipples on the neck of a goat may seem like sources of milk, but to try to get milk from such nipples will be foolish. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyaranjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada here is emphasizing over and over and over that matter is infused by spirit, that prakriti comes alive because of Purusha, and Purusha is able to be this electricity, as we have it in the purport, the energy to make the Prakriti come alive because of Ishwara. So these are the three irreducible, essential characteristics of reality. They're irreducible. You cannot reduce everything to simply Brahman, although everything is Brahman, but within Brahman, there are these distinctions of Ishvara, of Purusha and Prakriti. So it is all one, but it's not just all one. There are varieties within this oneness. And thus we have this beautiful Vedantic formulation, Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva. And that is to say, this incomprehensible understanding that everything is simultaneously one and non-other than ourselves, and yet everything is extraordinarily variegated and infinitely variegated and infinitely one, both. So this is, our philosophy. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy of Achintya Beda Beda that Prabhupada has given us. The second canto is arranged to offer an understanding of material nature. Prabhupada refers to Sankhya in the purport, where the materialistic Sankhya that claims that material nature is the source of itself. And it is not. The theistic Sankhya does recognize Purusha and Prakriti as two essential categories, two irreducible categories of existence. Now, the main text, the main sort of, you could say, manual of Sankhya is the Sankhya Karika. The Sankhya Karika, interestingly enough, was written by someone by the name of Ishvara Krishna. I find this very humorous because the Sankhya Karika, while positing the categories, the two very important categories of Purusha and Prakriti, never mentions anything about Ishvara or Krishna, and yet his personal name is Ishvara Krishna. I find this something kind of humorous about that, because Ishvara Krishna is the third, or I should say, the first and most primary category, even for understanding Purusha and Prakriti. So Ishvara is recognized in the Gita. Ishvara is recognized in the Yoga Sutra, and Ishvara, obviously, is recognized in the Bhagavata Purana and is expounded upon in extraordinary ways. And Ishvara consists of Brahman, Paramatman, and Bhagavan. So even within Ishvara, we can find these nuances of the manifestations of the divine. And from that primary category that has different levels, from that Ishvara category comes Purusha, and then comes Prakriti. All of this, of course, is contained within Brahman. There's no harm in asserting that. But to understand that the Gita says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, I am the foundation, I am the source of Brahman. So Brahman is understood in the Gita as the embryo of the material universe. This is in chapter 14, verse 3. Brahman is the great embryo, the great womb of the material creation. And I am the seed-giving father, Krishna says. Now, why is all of this important? Prabhupada says that our Krishna consciousness movement is not a religion. It is a process of purifying the heart. So why is this important to understand? Why does Krishna tell us about for example, what we have up here on the screen, chapter 14, verse 3. Why is it important? Why is Krishna telling us that he is the source of all creations? Because all creation is meant to either bind us or liberate us. By understanding the nature of creation, we can become liberated by our understanding of it and its purpose, or we can have a faulty conception of creation that will allow us to continue to be bound in this phenomenal world. So this is, I think, quite a remarkable thing about Krishna Bhakti, this great gift that Prabhupada has given us, is that understanding the nature of the phenomenal world, the physical universe, leads to a purification of the heart. Otherwise, why would it be there? It wouldn't be there if it weren't part of that process. As Prabhupada states clearly, our Krishna consciousness is about the purification of the heart. That means everything from the Bhakta's point of view, everything in our lives, all the things that are arranged for us in this world, as troublesome and as harsh as this world can be, but also as beautiful and as amazing as this world can be, all of this is arranged for our upliftment. It's all there for the purification of the heart. But without understanding the purpose behind the creation, we remain bound to the troublesome aspects of creation only. Now, everyone gets hints of the divine through creation, as in the 10th chapter, I believe 34th verse. I'm not sure. No, 30. Anyway, everything that is beautiful, splendorous, wondrous, extraordinary is but a spark of my splendor, Krishna says. And there are numerous ways that Krishna expresses in the Bhagavad Gita through the Virata Rupa how the divine pierces through the material veil to show us what the divine is all about, to give us a taste, to see a beautiful sunset, to see a beautiful sunrise, to see the beauty of the constellations of the stars. These give us just a tiny little taste of the beauty that exists in the divine. So this is, yes, thank you for this. This one, yeah, this is not the one that I was hoping for. Anyway, yeah, display. I mean, this is another way to explain. Yeah, this is fine. This is good. There are many ways that Krishna expresses this in the Gita. He says, of luminaries, I am the moon and the sun. He has the famous I am statements throughout the Gita to tell us that Krishna is not far away. He is not far away. He is there in the beauty of this creation. He's also there within our hearts. He's also everywhere around us. Nothing can exist without him. Nothing can exist without him. So this is, I think, the message that's being driven home in this purport, that this material creation is, although not directly from Krishna himself, does the various Purusha avatars, the Brahma is in charge of the creation of the universe. Shiva is in charge of cosmic dissolution, And Vishnu sustains both and sustains the cycle of samsara, of both creation and destruction, over and over and over and over. And but behind that is Krishna, the supremely beautiful, supremely playful, and supremely joyful Lord, Bhagavan. The three principal deities of Vrindavan are Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, and Radha Gopinath. And correspondingly, this is our divine beloved, one who is supremely beautiful, as in Krishna is the all-attractive, supremely playful, as in Govinda, who plays with the cows. He's also very humorous, by the way. Krishna's very humorous. We see this in the Leelas, the different Leelas in the 10th book. And then Krishna is supremely joyful, as he is with the Vraja Gopikas, as in the Rasa dance. We are a tradition that celebrates love. Plain and simple. We are a tradition that celebrates love, and we are put here in this world to learn what love is and what love is not. We are to cultivate our hearts and the purity of our hearts so we can elevate our awareness and consciousness into all the way into the divine realm. Contemplation on Krishna's Leelas is what gives us entrance into the divine realm. The Atman, the pure, Tatastha Shakti, the Atman, the pure self of the individual living beings, the living entities, especially humans, the Jivatman, is pure and is one of the energies of the Lord, the Tatastha Shakti. There's of course, the Chit Shakti, a pure spirit, the energy of pure spirit. There's Tatastha Shakti, the energy of the living beings. And then there's Maya Shakti, there's the energy of the phenomenal world, the physical world. These are three permanent, eternal energies of the Lord that come all from the Shaktimat, the one who possesses the Shaktis, or to say Bhagavan, the Bhagavat. What's interesting is the placement of the Jivatma, the Tatastha Shakti. Do you know, most devotees, they don't know what Tatastha means. It means one who is standing on the shore. Isn't that interesting? When you're standing, I don't know if all of you over there in Africa are near an ocean, but when you stand on the shore, the waves lap up on the shore and bathe your feet, and then the ebb of the waves go back into the ocean. So, are you in the ocean or are you on land when you're on the shore? Neither. You're kind of, on both. You're either in the ocean or you're on land, and this is our position as Jivatmas. We're in the ocean and we're on the shore. We don't know which way we're going, but that's what Krishna Bhakti is about, is to decide to dive into Kripa Sindhu, the ocean of grace. Don't stay on the shore. No more, staying on the shore, just dipping your feet a little bit in there. That's the nature of, material consciousness. Let me stay in this world, try to enjoy, try to, forget about the inevitability of death. Let me pretend that I'm going to be living forever, but that's the irony. You are living forever, but not in this world. We can live forever in the divine world if we just dive into the ocean of grace, Kripa Sindhu. So next time anyone visits the ocean, I want you to be thinking. I want you to stand on the shore and be thinking, do I go and dive into the ocean, or do I just sit up on the sandy shore and just kind of look at the ocean? Are we going to be part of the ocean, or are we going to be looking at the ocean from afar? But don't dive into the ocean unless you know how to swim. Prabhupada teaches us how to swim in the ocean of grace. Don't think that we can just teach ourselves how to navigate through the waves, the undertow, the animal life in the sea. We need the guidance of an expert. This is our process, to learn how to dive into the ocean. Now, don't mix up the metaphor, the example that the impersonalists use. They say that as in the conditioned world, we're like little drops of the ocean that became separate from the ocean. And then once we become liberated, the drops merge with the ocean. No, no, that's not the way it works. When you go swimming in the ocean, do you become the ocean? No, you're swimming in the ocean. You don't become the ocean. And Prabhupada gives that brilliant example in the purport here. When you put an iron rod in the kiln, then the iron rod is as good as fire. It's so red hot. It's as good as fire, but it doesn't ever at any point become the fire. Souls at no point become the ocean. Even though they may lose themselves in the beauty of the ocean and of the waters and the purification of the ocean water and so on. Beautiful. That's a sort of a samadhi. And as Patanjali states, it's shunya eva. It's as if you became emptied of self because of being so absorbed in the beloved object, which is the divine beloved of Krishna. Radha and Krishna. So, my friends, this is what we're about. We're about appreciating even this difficult world in which we find ourselves. There will be difficult things. There will be painful things. Much of the world lives in a continuous state of suffering in this world. This is very, very sad. Those of us who have the great privilege of practicing Krishna Bhakti, taking up the process, finding gurus and guides who can help us learn how to swim in the ocean of grace. This is our process. This is a grace unto itself. Just to know, to find a teacher in the matter of swimming in the ocean of grace. So I can, I think I've said quite a bit, but I can go on all day, but I think it would be considered to open up for any comments or questions. But our process, Prabhupada has given us such a great gift, But that gift that Prabhupada has given us needs to be opened with the assistance of a teacher. Not everything that Prabhupada states is so easy to understand. Just as a little child may not know how to open up a great gift that's wrapped and packaged in certain ways. Prabhupada packaged Krishna Bhakti in certain ways that can be difficult to unwrap. Those of us who are seasoned in Krishna Bhakti, those of us who have been practicing for decades, have the duty to help unwrap these precious gifts of Prabhupada for the benefit of others. This is so important. To the extent that we have been students, it will be to that extent that we can be teachers. If we've never been a good student, how can we be a good teacher? And once we're good teachers, we're still students. And ultimately, with our own students, we are students together, appreciating the great teachings that Prabhupada has brought to us in a distilled form, so much so that we need not get distracted thinking, I need to read the Goswami literature. I need to read this translation and that translation. I was the first disciple of Prabhupada to return to the academic world with the expressed purpose for establishing Vaishnava studies as a field of knowledge. Prabhupada blessed me to do this. I went on to the studies in America. Our most famous college or university is Harvard. And that's, by Krishna's grace, where I ended up getting 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. Why? To be able to infiltrate the academic and intellectual world to establish the amazing gifts of Krishna Bhakti. And in doing so, I've had to go and read in the original Sanskrit many different bhashyas and commentaries and different philosophies and so on. But I do not recommend doing that unless you have a reason and a seva for doing that. And even though I have had such a reason and seva to do that, I always come back to Prabhupada's books as my ultimate shelter. A devotional student of mine said, Gurudev, I feel like I should read the Goswami's books. And I said, have you even mastered the Bhagavad Gita? Do you understand the depths of the Bhagavad Gita? To this day, I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita for 55 years. And every time I pick it up now, I discover something new and precious. Now, why do you need to go anywhere else? It's the restlessness of the mind that too often can plague us. Be careful. Be very careful. Only with the guidance of a teacher should one move into areas that are not strictly Prabhupada's gifts. I remember spending a month with Prabhupada, in addition to many other times, but I went to the first big Mayapur festival, and morning and night, I heard Prabhupada speak. Twice a day, I would sometimes sneak onto morning walks with Prabhupada. Back then, they were quite restricted, so you had to sneak into them. So I was pretty good at sneaking into these walks, by the way. The only picture of me with Prabhupada is, well, there are a few, I think, but anyway, it mostly is on this walk in Mayapur. The Chandrodaya Mandir was barely 4 stories at that time. There was nothing else but fields, nothing else. And then when we went to Vrindavan, there were 2 weeks in Mayapur, then 2 weeks in Vrindavan. The Krishna Balaram temple was simply a bunch of columns of bricks with steel rods coming out the top. There was no temple. Piles and piles of rubble by those columns. The only thing that was finished was Prabhupada's room. So Prabhupada would walk down Bhaktivedanta Marg to Fogal Ashram. It took about 5 minutes to walk down there. And that's where we all stayed. We stayed in Fogal Ashram. He would give class morning and evening. And, one time I was sitting there. By the way, not many devotees were attending Prabhupada's classes. Does that sound crazy? Well, what was crazy about it is that Bhavananda, who arranged for prasadam in Mayapur, did terrible things. He had tents preparing the meals with little Bengali boys, squishing potatoes under their bare feet on the earth. I knew about this right away, and I decided to only drink dab juice, coconut water, and bananas. So I stayed very healthy. So, having class with Prabhupada every morning, every night for Gaur Purnima, with only about 12 devotees there. Because a couple of hundred of them were out on their backs, sadly. It was terrible. Prabhupada became very upset about this, the condition of the devotees. But anyway, fast forward to the 2 weeks in Vrindavan. We were sitting there in the dark morning, and Prabhupada was giving class, and there were only about 12 of us again in the audience. Prabhupada stopped in the middle of his talking, and he's looking over in my direction, and he's saying to Brahmananda, "What is he doing?" Brahmananda looks over at me. Well, at least I thought it was me. And he said, "He is sleeping, Prabhupada." He is sleeping? I'm thinking, oh my God, am I asleep? Am I sleeping, and am I not knowing that I'm sleeping while I'm sleeping? I'm terrified. So Prabhupada said, "Go tell him to leave." So Brahmananda, now I, of course, became friends with Brahmananda later on. This is 1974. I didn't know Brahmananda back then, but he's a big fellow, Brahmananda is big. I was a skinny little 108-pound, skeleton. I was very skinny back in those days. He starts marching over to me, and I am just absolutely frightened out of my mind. And it turns out it was the devotee in front of me who was falling asleep, not I. But you can imagine my terror. Prabhupada's looking at me saying, "What is he doing?" I'm like, well, I'm listening. I'm delighting in Prabhupada's class. And Brahmananda is saying I'm falling asleep. Well, it turned out it was the devotee who was sort of diagonally in front of me. And I could not tell, it was a little dark, exactly to whom they were pointing. But it taught me a lesson nonetheless. It taught me never be distracted by anything when we are hearing Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Katha, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita. Be completely attentive. I never, ever fell asleep during a class after that, even though we were very austere back in those days. A lot of austerity. Anyway, I think I've gone on long enough. Anyway, I could go on with Prabhupada stories, and that's for another time. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this beautiful Krishna Katha shared with us all. In fact, we've been waiting to have your association for a very, very long time. And somehow the Krishna has arranged we have you here today. The last time we had you, because of the way we write our dates, it was confusing because we followed the British. which
That's
is
right.
yes.
I reversed it. Yeah, and I
Yes.
apologize for that.
No, it was nothing of your fault. So, dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, realizations, you may want to ask or share, please you indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or to speak. If you so desire to put it in the chat room, we can also read that. Thank you. Probably actually, there was one question I was going to ask, but you
Yes,
answered.
please.
You answered the question. That is because lots of devotees, I wouldn't judge, but lots of devotees are with the opinion that uh, if if you want to understand Krishna, you have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada is one such bona fide spiritual master. He has written all his books there, so everyone can study his books and understand Krishna. But you answered by saying that it has to be understood through a teacher who will guide you through the writings, because on your own, as individuals, it's difficult, almost impossible to understand. You have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So thank you for stating that, because oftentimes we make such statements that Srila Prabhupada's books are there. So it leads to people thinking that then all I need is to read Srila Prabhupada's books and I'm enough. But that is not what Srila Prabhupada actually expects of us. So thank you for making that very important statement. Now, my question is, Krishna explains in the Gita the size of the Atma is 1/10,000th tip of a hair, which is incalculable, inestimable. But we say that the loving entity, the Jiva Atma, has his original form in the spiritual world. Now, is that form in the spiritual world the actual Jiva, or the Jiva is being given a spiritual body in the spiritual world? I am thinking that since the soul is 1/10,000th tip of a hair, it means that the soul is also encased in a body in the spiritual world, which is a spiritual body, that the spiritual body in the spiritual world is not the soul himself, because he is put into it. If you can help me understand my understanding about the real nature of the soul. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Very good question. Just as the Atman, in the Gita, we learn that there's the Atman, and then there's the subtle covering. The subtlest covering of the Atman is what? It's the Ahankara, right? Ahankara, or what Prabhupada translates as false ego. And then the subtle covering that, the subtlest covering, would be then buddhi, the buddhi, intelligence. And then the next covering that covers that, which covers the subtlest covering, is the mind, manas. And then, again, going from very subtle to gross. And then the covering of the mind is the indriyani, the indriya, the senses. And then finally, the covering of the senses is the body, is the physical body, sharira, or the deha, okay? And yet, Krishna says he's in the heart of everyone. So I ask you, where is the heart? Okay, it's a good one, right? Okay, Now, I've done some work on this, and I'm writing about this and publishing about it. The Kathopanishad, not in the Gita, but the Gita, it comes alive in the Gita, but the Kathopanishad talks about the analogy of the chariot. The chariot, itself is the body. The wheels are like the legs, right? So the chariot's the body. The horses are the senses. The reins are the mind, right? We have that analogy, right? And the buddhi is the arms of Krishna, the driver of the chariot, and then there is a Krishna who's riding in the chariot with Arjuna, the soul. So we've got the supreme soul and we've got the Jivatman in the chariot. The interesting thing is the way that Krishna doubles up for the intelligence, which Prabhupada says is right next door to the soul. But his arms sort of are representing the buddhi, but his being is the supreme person. But where's the heart? Because Krishna himself is in the heart as Paramatman, and the Jivatman is in the heart. So what would be the heart in that analogy? So I like to keep everyone on the edge of their seats here, and when I say I want to keep everyone on the edge of their seats, I actually mean it, because the seat of the soul and the seat of the supreme soul is the heart. So the analogy, the analog for a heart would have to be the seat in the chariot. What happens when Arjuna completely breaks down? What happens by the end of the first chapter? What happens to him? He collapses and sits in the chariot. And isn't that what happens? Isn't that what happens when we have breakdowns, when we just fall to pieces? We cannot even, our own bodies will not even support us at all. We fall into that extremely hurt heart. We collapse onto the seat. The seat of the soul is the heart. The seat of the supreme soul is the heart. Okay, moving into satisfying, hopefully, your response to your question. When we as bhaktas take up Krishna bhakti in our lives, the heart takes over our whole bodies. The spiritual heart begins to take over our whole bodies, and we grow a spiritual body. When the heart becomes so filled with prema, it becomes uncontainable. And this, of course, is exemplified in the paradigmatic bhakta of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He can't even manage himself. He is exemplifying a bhakta whose heart is so full of prema that ultimately, for a bhakta, it's like a child outgrowing his shoes. You just have to leave the shoes behind. This body has to be left behind because the prema, all of the prema, cannot be, contained in this body. So it's this uncontainable love for the divine that moves us into the spiritual world with a full spiritual body that emanates from our hearts, which is where our souls sit. These are heart bodies. Right now, so as I mentioned in the class, that Krishna Bhakti is not a religion, as Prabhupada said. It's a process of purifying the heart. So there are I could summarize Krishna Bhakti process in 4 steps. One is the conditioned heart. The heart, with all of its experiences, painful and pleasurable, wishful and fearful experiences, the conditioned heart. Then there's the awakened heart. Our hearts are awakened to Krishna. After the heart is awakened and the Krishna bhakti process is taken up, there's the purification and expanding of the heart. It's the third step. And then the fourth step is the flowing, the free flowing of love from the heart. And ultimately, perfection is the overflow of the heart. And ironically, that is death. That is death to a body that cannot contain that love anymore. There's so much love. Like I have to move on. So that's our spiritual bodies of Satchit Ananda. It's eternal. It's human affective consciousness. It's human but eternal. It's affective because it comes from the heart, and it's an awareness that doesn't get filtered through the mind and one's conditioning, but through the heart, the pure heart. And then one takes up a seva, and one so joyfully and playfully connects with the Vraja Leelas. How's that for a simple explanation?
Well, thank you. I have something to follow, but we'll go to my big brother, His Grace KAVIRAJA Prabhu. Please, you may unmute.
Yes. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhu.
Pranams.
Thank you very much. Well, I really wish I could take in everything you are expanding here, but the little I can grasp is what I want to ask question about. There's a lot. You just in the four category of the jiva, that you just explained. The fourth one is the overflowing with love, and you said that is perfection.
Yes.
So when you said that is perfection, can one get to that level of overflow and still not know Krishna?
You were breaking up at the last end, Prabhuji, please.
Can one get to that stage of overflow, which you describe as perfection, and still not know Krishna in full?
Can one achieve that stage of overflow?
Yes, he is asking, can one achieve that and still not know Krishna?
Oh, no. Overflow, that overflow is only possible because you have connected with Krishna's flow of love toward us.
So that's a second aspect. That's a follow-up, Prabhu. That's a follow-up. So if one has attained that level, which you describe as perfection, what does Krishna mean when he says in chapter 7, text 3, that many who have attained perfection still do not know me in full?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fully hearing your question because again, it's a little bit.
Yeah, maybe it's a brief, so I just close the window. What you describe as perfection is overflowing of love for Krishna. And Krishna said that in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, text 3, that out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for God realization, and out of those who have attained perfection, hardly one knows him in truth. So that's why I asked the first question: can one attain the level of perfection of where it's overflowing and still does not know Krishna?
Yes. Okay, so I mean, it is a process, yes. So I named the second level after the conditioned heart. I named the awakened heart. Now, Krishna is famous for playing the flute, right? Plays the flute. That flute is all about divinity awakening souls. Just as he awakens the Vrajagopikas out of their homes to come to the forest at night. So we too are to be awakened by Krishna's love call out of the darkness of this world and to come and ultimately dance with him. Prabhupada said we are meant to join the rasa dance. We're meant to dance with Krishna. But first, there's an awakening. There's an awakening process, a purification process. Even in the Ras Lila itself, the Lila shows how the gopis, are found in their, homes with the worldly activities of the home. And then the sound of the flute then awakens them. And then they go through a process of purification. And then eventually their love overflows to every Krishna that's dancing with each one of them. It's the overflow of the heart. So, so it definitely requires, divinity waking us up. In fact, all of us here have had something of a wake-up call. That's why we're all here. We've had a wake-up call. Maybe that came through accidentally coming in touch with a devotee. Maybe it came from reading some literature. Maybe it came from prasadam. Who knows? That wake-up can come in any form. There's no limit to how that waking up. There's no limit to what form that waking up can take. And there's no limit to who can help us along in the process of purification. Guru Tattva. The Tattva of Guru is so powerful. You cannot stop or control Guru-Shishya relationship. It comes to us when it's time for us to receive it. And who knows how Guru Tattva will work through someone, in someone, to us. There's ultimately no formula for this. Of course, in ISKCON, we try to formalize things a bit, maybe a little too much. But it is a miracle upon miracle that a soul in this world should take up a life of Krishna Bhakti. It is a miracle upon miracle. So it's all in interaction with Krishna. I hope I'm responding to your question. As much as I heard it, that's what I'm compelled to say. I'm not sure I'm hearing all of it, though.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, Krishna says that out of those who are searching for knowledge of him, those who have attained perfection, hardly one knows him in truth, even those who have attained perfection. So when you describe the fourth category of those who have attained perfection with overflowing prema, so I ask, is it possible to be on that level of perfection and still not know Krishna in full, like he says in the Gita? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. So you can look at that verse in two different ways. Those who are in the conditioned state, and while still in that conditioned state, are looking for perfection. And then among all those in the conditioned state that are looking for perfection, hardly one has discovered who I am, Krishna says. And as a university professor, I teach in two different institutions in the United States. And, I see students who are really trying to find perfection. And even though I assign them Bhagavad Gita and I assign them different, beautiful passages from the Upanishads and sacred texts and so on, that they just may not be ready for it. So on one level, that sort of natural selection of thousands amongst thousands, one may look for perfection, and then thousands among them, only one or two among them may find it. And then the question is, do they even know who Krishna is? But you can even look at that, you can apply that verse even to Krishna Bhakti. Out of so many people, who are conditioned in this world, billions of people, one or two or three may be awakened to Krishna Bhakti. And then the many thousands who are awakened to Krishna Bhakti, one or two may undergo the process of purification. And then out of the thousands of those who undergo purification, some of them will reach my divine realm. So you can apply it to do outside and inside the Krishna Bhakti practice.
Please, Prabhu, how would you explain what Krishna meant by saying those who have attained perfection? What kind of perfection is that? Those who have attained perfection, hardly one knows me into. So what kind of perfection have they attained? Not the type of perfection you're talking about. Is it another type of perfection?
Right. So the kind of perfection Krishna is speaking about there might be, for example, impersonal Brahman. They might discover Brahman. They might discover the realm of spirit. But have they discovered him yet? No. Then out of many of those who discover Brahman, maybe some will discover Krishna in the heart. But do they know Krishna Bhagavan yet? So you see, I think the rarity of Krishna Bhakti is being celebrated in that verse. That's the way I understand it. Because as we know, Prabhupada speaks of the impersonal Brahman as a perfection, but there's a greater perfection and the greatest perfection. In fact, in my translation of the Bhagavad Gita, I speak about the Guhya, Guyatara, and Guyatamam, and then Sarva Guyatama. So there's the great secret, the greater secret, and the greatest secret, but not just the greatest secret of all. Sarva Guyatamam Bhuya Shrinu Me Paramang Bachaha. Ishtosi me dhritam iti tato vakshami tehatam. Krishna says, my supreme message, me paramang vachaha, ishtosi me dhritam, you are so much loved by me. So, you put up the book right there. Yes, that's the book about which I'm speaking of. So what I tried to bring out in this book that will not only support everything that Prabhupada states in his Gita, but I try to emphasize or underscore these three secrets in the 18th chapter. Sarvaguyatamam Bhuya, the greatest secret of all greatest secrets. Once more, please hear again, it is my supreme message. You are so much loved by me. That is why we engage in devotional service. It's the return embrace. Krishna's already embracing us. But can we realize and fully appreciate the different levels of that embrace? So some that may pursue perfection may get a certain sense of that embrace through the Brahman. Maybe a greater sense of that embrace through Paramatman. But the greatest secret of all is direct, face-to-face with Krishna, as Arjuna was. But even he, in the first chapter, was so blocked by his own breakdown that he couldn't fully appreciate who was in the chariot with him. And isn't that our plight? We've not fully appreciated that Krishna is in each of our chariots.
Well, thank
Rich stuff. It's good stuff.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing this up. Really, really great stuff to think about. Really good stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Anyone else with something to ask or to share, please? Well, Prabhuji, you were talking about the unfortunate nature of the Jiva Atma.
Yes.
And I really appreciated the analogy you gave, like anytime you go to the beach, think of yourself whether you want to get in the ocean or you just want to stay outside. So are you in or you are just standing on the white sandy shore of the beach? Now, my question is, why does the loving entity take so much pride in not taking the decision whether to dive into the ocean or to just walk off the ocean completely and be on the land? But it seems the jiva is very much interested in wanting to enter into the ocean, not wanting to enter, so we become very indecisive. And is that a choice, or that is just how we are made to be like? Is that a choice that the loving entity just becomes indecisive whether to get into the ocean, whether to go back to the spiritual world where we actually belong to, or just keep staying outside here and not knowing when to dive in or when to keep ourselves off the touch of the ocean in reality?
Yeah. Well, I can play with the analogy further. The ocean is so great. It's so expansive. It's so, overwhelming. I mean, it's a good analogy because even the oceans that we have, I mean, when you look out at the ocean, you can take a boat out into the ocean and not see land on any side coming, looking out on any side of the boat. You could be, in a sense, in the middle of nowhere. Before we can really dive into such an ocean, just as children, we need our parents to take us in the ocean, show us what it's like, teach us how to swim. And that is, of course, the whole point of Guru. It's hard while one is engrossed in the material world with jobs and responsibilities, paying bills, to think of eternity. I mean, eternity is so absent from our temporal activities, and yet it's so obvious and present because of the temporality of all things. So there's a kind of really a paradoxical experience. On the one hand, we want to taste something eternal because no one likes the idea of dying. And death, of course, is a euphemism, really, for just changing from one body to another. But it's not just changing from one body to another. It's changing from a whole world that we've known, where we've built up relationships, where we've built up a kind of life. The question is whether we're willing to build up a life that connects to the eternal, or do we build up a life, of a bank account, for example? You can build up, millions of dollars in a bank, but then when you die, you're just like everyone else. It's if I say to everyone here, look, everyone, we're going to, right after this class, we're all going to move to the North Pole of the world. Just right away. And you say, well, wait a second, Garuda. I mean, I haven't even packed my bags. Too late. You got to pack your bag. You just, whatever you got, throw it in there and let's go. And too often death is like that. We haven't prepared. But how much better is a trip, any voyage, when you've thought about it for a while? It's funny. I recently, my wife and I went to England and to Belgium. And she's the kind of person who takes out her suitcase a week in advance. And she plans very carefully what to take, what not to take. And I'm the kind of guy that packs 2 hours prior. So I'm what you should not do. And my wife's example is what we should do in the analogy of preparing for the great journey of death. Everyone's going to take it. There are no exceptions. I don't care how great a yogi is, how powerful a yogi is. And sometimes, in India, you hear about how powerful a yogi is. Well, you know what? It doesn't impress me when I think about Krishna's powers. And those powers are only gained because Krishna allows them to have a few little tiny powers. Krishna's vibhuti may translate into various siddhis, and that's fine. But don't get caught up in that. That's ridiculous. That's just another distraction from packing your bags. Being so powerful and successful in this world can be a terrible distraction from the real voyage that we all must take. So packing our bags. How do you know what to pack? As a child, we don't know what to pack. So we need the help of Guru. As a child, we don't know how to swim. So we need the help of gurus, various gurus. I mean, Prabhupada says our parents are our original gurus. So we have so many teachers in our lives along the way. Some of them are terrible teachers, by the way. I can remember some elementary school teachers that were absolutely horrific. Okay, so those are the teachers. Again, Krishna's teaching us what is a teacher, right? Sometimes we pick teachers, even in Krishna Bhakti, that are not the right teachers for us. Well, I say don't waste your time. Find the right teacher. There's no time to waste. Find the teacher in whom we can place our trust, in whom we can find clarity and direction and affection as well. Someone who exemplifies something of the perfection of a loving heart. Then we know how to pack our bags. So follow my wife's example. Do way ahead. Don't do my example of 2 hours before getting on the plane. That's ridiculous. No one can pack well, doing it that quickly.
Well, thank you so much for waiting. The analogies are so beautiful. But there was once we had one of your godbrothers, Srila Prabhupada disciple, who came to speak to us. And I remember in his discourse, he mentioned that Srila Prabhupada had warned his disciples about reading Gaudiya math books. but there was one particular devotee who was found reading Gaudiya math books, and Srila Prabhupada says, "Oh yeah, you can go ahead and read." And so he was asked, "So which do we follow?" And his answer was that the general instruction given by Srila Prabhupada is don't read. Now you were talking about you studying so many different books for the purpose of your profession, being a lecturer, so you can teach the students. And you also said that you do not recommend that to devotees.
Right.
So my question then is, what advice do you give to devotees who want to, maybe they became devotees, but in the middle of being a devotee, they want to pursue higher material education. What advice do you give to these people? Because they're going to spend lots of time studying books that probably have nothing much to do with Krishna consciousness. But since that is the field they want to pursue, what advice do you have for such devotees?
Well, if they want to get a PhD in biochemistry, well, that has its own special area of knowledge that they'll have to, of course, become very highly proficient when gaining the highest degree in the land, namely a PhD. Now, if they're going to go into academics to establish Krishna Bhakti, then yes, they may need to read in various areas of the literature to expound upon Krishna Bhakti in supportive ways. And that would be understandable. But you began your question about some devotees being allowed or being, blessed by Prabhupada for reading the Gaudiya Math literature. And I was actually there when Prabhupada said, "Please do not read the literature of my godbrothers." That happened in 1974 when we all went over to India in a large, en masse for the first time. And there were bookstalls, in Vrindavan with Gaudiya Math books, Tirtha Maharaj's books. Anyway, there are many books. And a devotee once came up to me, a young devotee. She's very, very nice, very sincere. She said, "Garuda Prabhu, I'm a voracious reader. I read everything I can get my hands on. I mean, I read this, I read that. Any devotee who puts out any book about this or that or the other, I read everything that's available and I go through it like crazy. Is that okay?" I said, "Well, perhaps that is okay. But I ask you, what have you really absorbed from any of these books?" And she was barely a first initiated disciple of one of my godbrothers. And I saw her give me a quizzical sort of look, and I said, "Look, this is what I recommend. I recommend that you go back to Bhagavad Gita. You find the verses in the Bhagavad Gita, and not every verse will do this, but there are certain verses in the Bhagavad Gita that will truly speak to you, that you find that are truly beautiful. And I want you to repeat those verses over and over, 21 times, and sit with the knowledge of and beauty of those verses and go deep. Perhaps look at all the ways Prabhupada quotes that verse in the rest of the literature. Go to the Vedabase. Find out how he speaks about that verse over and over. Go deep. Breadth has no purpose if one has not gone deeply into the most important texts which Prabhupada has given us. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Everything is there. Truly, as Prabhupada said, everything is in my books. It's up to us to access that treasure. And if we don't know how to access it, approach someone who knows how to access it and inspire you to find those treasures, to know how to receive those treasures, how to excavate those treasures from Prabhupada's books. There's so many beautiful things in Prabhupada's books. It would take many lifetimes to really gain all of the treasures that one potentially could have. But we're supposed to, in this lifetime, gain those treasures and not have other literature as a distraction. I mean, Prabhupada did say that Shakespeare, if you want to understand the nature of human, the human condition, read Shakespeare. He was a master in understanding the psychology of the human and the nature of the conditioned soul. But you already have that in the Bhagavad Gita. You've got that in the Bhagavatam. Just read in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna actually makes fun of the conditioned soul. He says, this is the way they think. Ishwaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. I am God, Ishwara. I am the Ishwara. I control everything, which is, of course, totally delusional. Ishwaroham aham bogi. I am the enjoyer. Siddhoham. I'm perfect. I'm perfect. I'm completely content and fulfilled. I'm perfect. Balavan, I possess great power, and Sukhi, and I'm so happy. This is illusory, but yet that's the nature of the conditioned soul, to sort of go on with this after it's been proven in one's life over and over that none of these things are true. What allows us to do this? What allows us to stand on the shore and not dive into the ocean? We are getting distracted by the forest that comes up to the ocean, the forest of material existence, which so easily burns with the fire of samsara. Samsara davan naladi daloka pranaya karuna ganaganatvam. That the fire of material existence, forest fire, even forest fires in this world cannot even be put out by humans. So it's the rains, the clouds that draw from the ocean of grace. The rains that the clouds draw from the ocean of grace, the Kripa Sindhu, and then those very clouds come over the burning, raging forest fires and extinguish them. And that's the nature of divine grace.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Beautiful. Dear devotees, please permit me to. Shrimavara Prabhu. Okay, please, you may unmute. Shrimavara Prabhu.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you. When you said, sorry, I'm in the traffic, so please bear with me, the noise in the background. When you said that one does not need to read other books, because what Prabhupada has given us, we have not even been able to fully digest that.
Right.
And like you gave your own personal example, for 55 years you've been reading, and every time you discover new things. Actually, I can relate with that, and I also used to think like that. However, um, I have been curious and I've been looking for the opportunity to ask you this question. You as a person and all other Prabhupada disciples, some, not so many of them did that. You're very special in your category. Those who translated Bhagavad Gita give another version of their own Bhagavad Gita. For because I'm translating the Gita into local languages in Africa. I've finished with one, I'm doing another one. And I actually realize how it is very, in fact, it's a big task trying to,
Yes.
whip through, especially Prabhupada, and then, the new version, and you're trying to combine the two and give it something, that people can understand directly. So in that case, there's a need. There is a need because it's in another language, and
Yes.
it's not English. But you actually see the need to be able to, weave them together to make it easy for people to understand.
Yes.
Now, my question to you, Prabhu, and any other Prabhupada disciple who gave their own version, again in English. So I've been wanting to ask, what is the motivation for that? If we believe that Prabhupada has actually said everything, and we just need to understand that properly, are we not creating more confusion if we're translating again into English? I'll give you another version in English. So that's my question, and it's very sincere.
Excellent question. Thank you, Prabhuji, and I appreciate your very of doing translation work. That is not an easy task at all, and that's a whole other discussion. We can get into sometime. But first of all, I need to tell all of you that I have been using Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in the university classroom longer than any other bhakta ever has. I'm the first devotee that became a professor in university settings, and I've been using Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita for 35 years in the university setting. When I've seen these outsiders question and even a little combatively question Prabhupada's words and his translations, I feel very protective of Prabhupada. And I decided, if you don't accept how Prabhupada has translated the Gita, I will show you through a very strict translation that they come out saying the same thing. So my Gita, first and foremost, was to prove Prabhupada's Gita right. That was my first motive. And then while I was at it, I decided, well, let me also try to emphasize certain things that I think devotees, as I've seen over the years, need to hear. We all hear plenty from Prabhupada, how we almost are obliged to perform devotional service, to rid ourselves of sins, to cleanse the heart, and to perform devotional service. But why? It's because Krishna has been embracing us. Krishna desires us. And I don't think devotees get that enough. So in my Gita, I also write some commentary about that very thing. Now, as we are a Bhashya tradition, it's one thing to read what people have said in the past, but right now, we are a Bhashya tradition. Prabhupada himself said there could even be other Gita translations. He said that to Pradyumna in a conversation. But that's not, but again, it needs to be purposeful. There needs to be a pedagogical, a serious devotional pedagogical purpose. So mine is, in a sense, trying to continue in Prabhupada's wake in his path, a way to present the Bhagavad Gita that will simply support and illuminate what he's done. In fact, I've had many persons come to me privately and say, look, I couldn't appreciate Prabhupada's Gita until I read yours. Sometimes they're almost embarrassed to say that because I'm not the big Acharya. Prabhupada's the big Acharya, and I should be able to understand and appreciate what he says there. So, and I tell devotees that's not always the case. And we are a Bhashya tradition, so we should be writing Bhashyas. We should be writing commentary and texts that further expound upon Prabhupada's gifts. Look at all the things that devotees are publishing. They're writing autobiographies. They're writing memories. They're writing maybe some
Memories.
memories, translations of all kinds. But where's the Bhashya? We are a Bhashya tradition. So I'm thinking of actually arranging for a Bhashya sort of contributions to Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada's books need further explanation. For example, I wrote something, I think it's on my devotee website, garudadas.com. I wrote a very thorough analysis using Mimamsa hermeneutics, our traditional form of hermeneutics or interpretational tools that the Goswamis themselves used. I wrote a whole analysis on that contentious rape passage. It's so sad for me to see devotees trying to interpret that rape passage, even to the point where some women are convincing themselves that, well, maybe I do somewhere down deep want to be raped. What? What? No, not at all. That's not what Prabhupada is saying. Some people even make his statements sounding like he's condoning rape. No, absolutely not. I've seen the BBT come out with some attempted official statement saying, well, Prabhupada didn't really mean what he said. Excuse me? Prabhupada didn't mean what he said? Excuse me. How can, if after this class, you, Sahadevji, said, well, Garuda said some things he didn't really mean. No, everything I'm saying here, I really mean. Now, you could come and ask me, Garuda, did you really mean to say blah, 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 and so on? Well, then I could say, oh my gosh, no, I didn't mean that. What I meant was this. So that could be corrected. But I'm the only one who can correct me. What to speak of Prabhupada? What Prabhupada said there in that contentious purport, he actually meant. The problem is that I have not read a single attempt at interpreting it among the maybe 8, 9 different kinds of interpretation, which I review in the article, by the way. This was published in ISKCON Communications Journal. So it was vetted and reviewed by highly competent devotee scholars. It's the only interpretation of its kind ever. And it makes sense of what Prabhupada said directly, but you have to go through a process that's rigorous. And there are not many of us trained to do that. So I felt obligated to do that. And so you have the article if you're interested. So we have to explain Prabhupada. And that is our great privilege.
Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu. I love that. I really love that. In fact, I love the spirit. You're doing this because you're defending Prabhupada, and
yes.
So that makes it very logical and very authentic. I mean, it's not like some people saying that some Prabhupada disciples are giving their own version of the Gita. They are so proud. I had that kind of statement before. So one of the reasons, of course, I've had an experience in translation, and I knew that, this is actually not easy explaining certain things. Really quite a lot of them like that. that made me really, really thoughtful, how to pass that in my own language without creating confusion in the mind of people. So you're right when you say that. Probably we have to explain certain things. If you have not, like professionals trying to translate the Gita, they just run into trouble. They can't. They just can't. You're professional in a language. You're prolific in a language. Does not mean that you can translate Bhagavad Gita. No, you have to be in the spirit of the devotion. You have to be a practicing devotee. Otherwise,
that's right.
A lot of things you get wrong.
That's right. Beautiful.
So now, following what you've just said, I appreciate that and I love that spirit. But then there is still something lingering on, and that is, wouldn't those who, I mean, like you've been asked to come up with a justification or something acceptable between the BBT high version and then the revisions they've done, and everyone looking up to what you gonna give. Or I don't know whether you already finalized that. So if those who have made those kind of interpretation, or giving another kind of interpretation that's this caused so much problem in the community, ISKCON community, if they also use this argument that Prabhupada needs to be explained, that's what we're trying to do, because ordinary people cannot understand some of these things. So what about that? If they're also using that as an argument, what would you say? In fact, that's not exactly what I wanted to ask, but that also came into my mind because something else more deeper was there, and it kind of escaped.
Yeah.
Right. What do you say to that, Prabhu?
Yeah. Very good. Very good. First of all, yes, Prabhupada needs to be explained, just like our Vaishnava philosophy needs to be explained. I mean, when we give class, there are devotees explaining what Prabhupada is explaining in his purport. I mean, that's kind of a spontaneous, impromptu bhashya. This is what we're doing in class. So Prabhupada, of course, established that kind of class giving and BTG writing from the very beginning. Back in the 70s, I wrote articles for Back to Godhead magazine. Prabhupada wanted us to do that sort of thing. So now, Prabhupada needs to be explained because, Prabhupada needs to be explained, but he does not need to be corrected. There's a difference. But some people in the BBT think that Prabhupada needs to be corrected and improved. I say no. That is not what any author should ever have subjected to them. Once you've published a book, that's what is that's what author means. You have authorized a publication and it's finished. Now, if a book is great and so important, there are always ways to annotate a book. Annotation. So there are two extremes in the movement. There are some devotees say you shouldn't touch Prabhupada's books at all. There's no issue. There's no explaining that's necessary at all. The other extreme is that no, Prabhupada's early disciples, they didn't understand his accent as well. The transcriptions were inaccurate. We go back to the original sound recordings and try to correct the original transcriptions and so on. And that's the other extreme. And even I've heard personally the BBT editors whom I've known for decades. They tell me that there are things in Prabhupada's books that need to be corrected. I said, you don't correct the Acharya. What you do in annotations, in endnotes or footnotes, you suggest an alternative reading that may be something he would have wanted, but you don't say what he would have wanted because you don't know what he would have wanted. And to assert what he would have wanted, even if you have evidence in a previous a sound recording, still you don't know that he would even want it changed. This is so important. So I've come up with the formula. I've been studying this for 6 years. I held a whole conference with devotee and non-devotee scholars, 8 of whom were initiated devotees, scholars, and the other 6 were outside, excellent, top of the field scholars. And they all agree that you cannot change the words of any author without their authorization. But what you can do with great works, you can go and look at the annotated Hamlet by Shakespeare, the annotated, Paradise Lost by John Milton. Great pieces of literature deserve annotated editions. And what you put in the annotations are possible alternate readings that were discovered in original manuscripts, but you never change the published writing of an author. You just can't. It's total speculation. I'll give you an example. So there are 4 lines in the purport in the original Gita to that verse. I believe it's in 10:30. I was mixed up the verses in chapter 10. A later verse that says, "Of wielders of the bow, I am Ram." The second 2 lines were completely removed from Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada had been speaking from that Gita 173 times, and he heard the purports. He never objected to anything in the book, except maybe 2 things, which can be corrected since he objected. That's fine. But he never objected. And Prabhupada, and even though the editor went back and didn't find those 2 lines in the original transcription, Prabhupada was found talking to a gentleman in Mumbai who said, "So Ramchandra is not mentioned in the Gita." And Prabhupada said, "Oh, yes, he is. Of wielders of the bow, I am Ram." And those 2 lines were there that were removed. And when the editor was shown this, he still refused to keep it as originally published. This is a serious, serious problem. As soon as the BBT editors think they can go into Prabhupada's books and make them better, change them, improve them, we have a problem. But as soon as we respect everything as Prabhupada gave it to us and left to us, with whatever editors he was working with at the time, that is beside the point. But when we can respect the original and frame it with beautiful annotations and suggestions that support it, just as a valuable painting deserves a very beautiful frame, then we're doing the right thing. But to change the picture and to not frame it is an absolute offense to any artist or author. To leave a picture without a frame is not to support it or decorate it properly. That is our task. And I speak authoritatively on this because as the oldest devotee doing academics and someone who is published with the top publishers in the world, like Oxford, Princeton, Yale, HarperCollins, and so on, I'm experienced with these publishers and editors. And after consulting scholar after scholar after scholar in this whole issue, this is the solution, is framing the edition as Prabhupada left it and gave it to us, but suggesting some alternate readings. And that way you don't change anything, you add something, and you're respecting the reader and the author at the same time. So there's a lot to say on that. I've written a whole book on it. Anyway, but thank you for giving me the chance to speak about that. The important thing is, if Prabhupada is our teacher of how to swim in the ocean, don't look up at the teacher and say, Prabhupada, you're not teaching me how to swim properly, so I'm gonna tell you how to teach me. That's just not right. That's just not the right. That's effectively what's going on. And I am single-handedly addressing this. But there are hundreds and even thousands of devotees that are thanking me for dealing with this, because we want to trust the BBT. We want to trust them. And the translations that you're doing, Prabhuji, I'm assuming from English to some African languages, these may need they may need some annotations and some adjustments. And, I admire your task in taking this up. This is a very, very important task. So anyway, it's a lot to say about this. Anyway, I'm sorry if I went on and on too much.
No, not at all. Thank you so much. Does anyone have something to say? Well, Prabhuji, I am blessed in so many ways, in the sense that I've been following you for quite a long time, and I've heard this argument you had with Namaras about this Srila Prabhupada's books. And of course, the devotee who asked the question, you may appear to be like the only person fighting for this cause, but probably trust me, there are many devotees who understand and appreciate and believe that what you're fighting for should be the way forward. There should be annotation to explain what this means, but the words of the Acharya should remain intact. Like personally, when I read the translation of Bhagavad Gita 220, for the show that I like Srila Prabhupada's English translation much more than the present day English translation.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Srila Prabhupada had heard this particular purport 173 times. He never said anything about it. There was one time, it happened in Philadelphia, where one devotee was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Canto 6. It's talking about Ajamil. And the devotee read that, and Ajamil called on his son's name, Narayan, 3 times. And Srila Prabhupada stopped him. He says, who said he called on Narayan 3 times? So he asked the devotee to make sure they corrected.
I was right there. I was right there when he did that. I was living in Philadelphia Temple.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that was right there. I heard this. He was right on the asana, the Vyasasana. He was there in July of 75 for Rath Yatra. And I prepared his room across the street from the temple. And but he was on the in the temple room on the Vyasasana when he said this and made this correction. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I heard it right there from his lotus mouth. I heard it.
Yeah. So, dear devotees, I just wanted to share briefly a little bit about a bio of our revered speaker today. Prabhuji, of course, his legal name is Mr. Graham, Dr. Graham. He has a PhD in so many different, I can't wrap my head around it, but his bhakti name is GARUDA Prabhu. And Prabhuji, I must say, I first saw you before I knew your name. But when I first saw you, I didn't know who you were, because you were very young that time with my Guru Devi Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. You were doing some sort of university program. And
wait, who is your guru?
Bhaktivedanta Swami.
Oh, Bhaktivedanta Swami. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
very close friends.
Very, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Prabhuji has been a practicing devotee for over 55 years. He received both Harinam and Brahminical initiations from Srila Prabhupada. He was blessed by Srila Prabhupada to enter the academic world, wherein he eventually received 3 master's degrees and a doctorate in comparative religion from Harvard University. And if we understand the past time as to how Prabhuji got entry or entrance into the university, then we all can understand how Srila Prabhupada actually blessed him to enter into the university, because under normal circumstances, he shouldn't be in the university. I heard that. So that tells that Srila Prabhupada actually blessed him to enter into the academic world. From there on, he became an established university professor, now holding 2 university positions, and the first Bhakta devoted to publish books on Krishna Bhakti with world-class academic and trade publishers. Since then, he's been guiding younger devotee scholars and has become the gatekeeper for academic Krishna Bhakti-related publications, and a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada bestowed on him the title of KAVIRAJA. Prabhuji does not use that title very much, but I prefer to use that title, KAVIRAJA. Prabhuji has served as a consultant for ISKCON leadership and as a guide for devotional writing. He has also counseled hundreds of ISKCON devotees in a professional counseling capacity. He is an original member of the Bhaktivedanta Institute group established by Bhakti Swarup Damodara Goswami. He has had a long-standing relationship with the BBT since 1982, including 2 major BBT grant projects. He is invited to lecture around the world at ISKCON temples, yoga centers, and major universities and institutions, such as the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., where he has offered over 3,000 lectures. So if you haven't met Prabhuji before and you read all this bio about him and you meet him as we've met him today, then you're going to be surprised. Oh, I've heard all this about him, but he's a very simple man, a very simple person. And Prabhuji, this is the deception that we all have. We've heard so much about Krishna, God, 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 God. And when we happen to be so fortunate to see Krishna, then we get surprised. So is this God that I've heard so much? So this is the bewildering aspect of understanding Krishna. But Prabhuji, we thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And please, we humbly request that when we do send out an invitation to you next time, please, you accept our invitation and be with us to share your love and wisdom with us. We thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the opportunity, and my pranams to you and to all the devotees here today. Thank you so much.
Just one more thing, please. Just a
Please.
second request. That request about your being invited, your invitation to this forum, because next time you be coming, I will get certain passages of the Gita that I have problem with in the translation. I'll try to bring them up so that you can throw light on them. I really try to do that because there was some areas, I really just like you got stuck. You read the 2 versions, the original, you read the new one, and you're just thinking, my God, what to do?
Yeah.
So by the next time, please, we want you to be a regular person on this forum because
Yes.
we are following your footsteps in trying to present Prabhupada's version in local languages, and we need a person like you to help us and guide us. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for being here.
Yes, thank you. And there may be that we should have a special world translators of Prabhupada's books, where those kinds of problems can be brought up and can be solved. Maybe that is something we should put together rather than trying to take care of it here. So it might be that would be a good thing to do. Let's think about that. And you can contact me through my email. So we can talk about that. I'm very interested. I am a translator, and you know, this is it's a major intellectual feat to really give something a really good translation. So there are things that we can discover together about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. We need you in so many ways, so many angles in the spiritual life. So we'll get in touch with you offline to seek your assistance later on.
I'm happy to serve whatever way I can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered uncle and our grand uncle, His Grace. In fact, I'm sorry, I forgot something. Prabhuji is also an initiating guru. I forgot to mention that. It's very important and very relevant. He's an initiating guru in ISKCON. So there are no boundaries. So there are no boundaries. Yeah, thank you so much. So Hare Krishna. So you may all unmute and we all chant Hare Krishna, please. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpa taripyascha, kripa sindhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. All praise and praise Garuda Prabhu ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.